Care WA at 866-757-1832 or visit linktocarewa.org.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no copays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.rainieravenue radio.world.
Good afternoon. Happy Veterans Day to so many veterans out there. And this is one of the great days in our country to honor all of those that have served our country and in our armed services. It was a great, at the halftime at the Seahawks game, there was just a wonderful presentation and a wonderful standing ovation. And thank you to all of the folks and served in various forms of the military. And Mick, high school sports certainly has produced so many young athletes, both male and female, who have gone on to serving. And it's a great day to say thank you and reflect all those folks who do for our country.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a very important day in our country. A lot of people get the day off, don't understand why. So it's great that we can remind them that some people have made some incredible sacrifices for us to be as fortunate as we are. And, you know, the armed forces are good partners of ours and come out and actively recruit, looking for the right fit and match with students. And for some, it's a fantastic career move.
Well, he is Mick Hoffman. As many of you know, he is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And I am Juan Cotto. I am a host of a couple of different shows here on Rainier Avenue Radio, and certainly Rainier Avenue Radio. It takes an in-depth look every couple of weeks at high school athletics. And we have a person who, boy, I tell you, you put on a lot of miles. This man drives all over the state, and he really tries to make his influence known as the person who oversees the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Of course, that's Mick Hoffman, the executive director. And we are going to have a conversation today really centered around athletes and mental health. And we've touched on so many of these different issues, Mick, since we've been doing the show, and we've intertwined them. We'll have a little focus today. And first of all, we'll talk about the physical side of athletics, and you and I have taught it, the strength and conditioning, nutrition, but the mental side of athletics, especially coming out of the era of the pandemic. If we are out of it yet, it's something that's going to impact us for quite some time. But at least the thought process, it lessened the stigma around mental health, something that is such a concern for our country. How big of a concern is student-athlete mental health across Washington State high schools right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's alarms going off that there's a major concern, but it is definitely a point of focus. And coming out of COVID, people's mental health being cooped up and, afraid of the unknown, it's been mainstream, which I think is one of the most positive things to come out of COVID, is that people are having open dialogues and conversing about the fact that at times we all struggle, right? We all hit the wall. Some people are predispositioned. Some people get it later in life. And to normalize the conversation where people don't feel the stigma of saying they need some help is really one of the best things that I saw come out of that. And our student athletes and young people and parents have definitely keyed into that.
Mick, what are some of the trends or signals that you and your staff have noticed, or at least getting feedback from district athletic directors? And we have seen so many things impact our athletes over the last several years. We see it at the professional level, and and certainly, for example, in college programs, coaches leaving mid-season and coaches getting fired. Obviously, that upsets the athletes that are there, especially at the collegiate level with the NIL and all these different things are there, and the coaching staff that brought them in, and it creates a little bit of shakeup. I guess too at the high school level, we've seen some changes in coaching staffs here recently in Seattle, and those have been much talked about, and we spent our time talking about those. But we haven't really talked about how do the athletes deal when they are dealing with new coaches and new administrators and changes within the building that they are in during that 4-year period.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much turnover in some programs, and I think that's the programs that we see consistently be successful on the scoreboard are ones that typically have some stability with coaching, right? Because students tend to migrate and go where they're comfortable and it aligns with them. And when you bring in new leadership and adult leadership and philosophy and style, our kids today aren't like our age when we used to be like coach was coach and you did what coach said. And if coach was a complete obnoxious, whatever, you found something good to say and you didn't say anything bad out loud and you just learned to cope. And if you couldn't cope, you got out. And fortunately, in today's world, it's not like that anymore. It's more of a give and take. It's more of a partnership. Where will that settle in 5 more years post-COVID? We'll see. But I think what we're seeing is, and I think the other piece that plays into this is the community youth sports where people are jumping from team to team. Some people playing on 2, 3, 4 teams at one time or moving 2, 3, 4 times during the season in their community-based sports. So the expectation is more of that with us. And that's kind of some of the friction we battle. When you ask what are trends we see a lot more eligibility cases where people are claiming mental health issues. And there's no doubt that there's a variety and a scale to the impact of that. So what we've tried to do to be fair and consistent with the 225,000 students we serve is is it something that's treated or documented in some way? And so, trends, we do a lot more with medical professionals and attorneys reviewing this kind of stuff, trying to support our kids. Because again, WIAA's goal is to keep competitive equity as much as possible in this world, and student shifting sometimes can put that out of balance. But the priority trend is the student's well-being.
Going back to that concept of the student's well-being and the rules that are in place to ensure that students have not only a great academic experience, but a great athletic experience. And nowadays, and I tell you, with a high school senior in this house, Mick, I mean, the number of applications that he's starting to turn out for schools, the essays that have to be written, all of the things that have to be pulled together, including his father's credit card as he's sending out these applications. But I told him, take it, and I'm someone who's always critical about how many video games he plays. But I was on him about a week ago. I said, gee whiz, with practice and everything else going on, and all the work that you're putting in and getting his ankle rehabilitated and physical therapy. And then on top of it, all the activity around next year. And I think about the kids who are going through this here all throughout the state of Washington and the seniors in particular. And then, of course, they got to go out and they had to play Friday night, go out and on a nice, cool night. But certainly they got to go out there and they were able to play their football game. Boy, the pressure of performance and all the things surrounding. What do we do and what is the WIAA giving our member schools to make sure that these kids are able to juggle all of the things they need to do?
Our role in that is really to make sure that when they play, so for example, these playoff games, that we have a drop dead date if two schools can't agree to. So we try to keep the competition fair. The schools really are the ones providing that support. We're trying to provide more tools to coaches to make them more conscientious of their role as coaches beyond X's and O's. So a coach, and I know there's some questions coming up on this we'll hit in detail, but coaches like teachers, they spend a lot of time with students, and depending on the sport and the level of involvement of kids and coaches, there's structured time, unstructured time. You get to see kids at their best, at their worst, succeeding and failing as a coach. And, ideally you would notice something along with their parents and other people in their lives and be able to let somebody know. So, that's what our role is continuing to develop ways to make coaches aware that if they notice something, they're not going to be the ones to fix it. Because most coaches aren't counselors or mental health specialists, what have you, but they might be able to identify something's different and let the right people know who can come in and provide those kind of services for kids. So, think about what your son's going through right now, right? He's talking about leaving home, which is exciting, but it's also scary. Mm-hmm. He's going out competing, trying to get into programs, just like trying out for teams and getting playing time by getting into schools. People are asking him all the time, what are you going to do with the next 50 years, 60 years of your life? And heck, at 17, 18, hardly any of us knew that answer. But there's just those things on top of being a kid and competing in today's world. So, what we're trying to do is make sure coaches remember, hey, this should be fun. We can compete hard, but it should be fun. That is the number one reason kids play.
Tell you, the other night during the game, they needed a chain crew, and Monty Collar knows that whatever he needs from me, I'll do. So they said, do you mind doing the chain crew? And so we'll give you a bottle of water, a tri-tip sandwich, and some Doritos. I said, hey, you're speaking my language right there. So got down there on the sidelines, Mick, and there was a injury in the game. And or actually before the game, there was a one of the white hats who was overseeing the officials that night. He said to me, "Weren't you in highlight?" I said, "Yeah, it was a long time ago." And he goes, "You stayed there a long time." He goes, "Well, you were one of the guys that stayed there a while." And I really appreciate. It was really good to kind of catch up with some of the referees I haven't seen it when I get down there. But to recognize that the consistency that you're trying to build within staying at 5 years in a program that's, I think the average coach stays there about 2 years, you have an opportunity to really establish some really cool relationships. And I was really cool that that our white hat remembered that.
Yeah, those are the experiences and the memories that that show the work you put in. People appreciate it, and I guess. As we go, maybe that's one of the things as kids are transitioning out of high school and moving on is, doing things that help other people that then are recognized, it might be 30 years later, 20 years later, but eventually you're going to hear it if you put in the work consistently. So, I think those are the kinds of things that come out of sports and activities that don't come out of a lot of other places in the schoolhouse.
He is Mick Hoffman, and he supports the schoolhouse. He is really, really someone who is so committed to our kids throughout the state of Washington, and making sure that the athletic experience and the activities experience that they have is a positive one, and working with athletic directors throughout the state of Washington, working with the staff down in Renton, Washington, some great professionals, and some of them actually come on this show too. This is WIAA Primetime on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick, the roles of schools and coaches. Coaches are trained or encouraged to spot early on mental distress in their athletes. And I was, and you touched on that earlier, but kind of take us through some of the support systems, counselors, psychologists, and networks that schools are implementing to give kids an opportunity to handle some of the stresses that they're feeling.
Yeah, this is one of the struggles I think a lot of our schools are feeling right now. We keep hearing about this financial crisis in schools and a bunch of different things, but a big part of what happened after COVID is that COVID money, the ESSER money, they hired additional support system in school. So a lot more mental health counselors. They hired more counselors. They hired more nurses, people to provide those kind of services. And now that ESSER and that federal funding for COVID is gone, they're trying to sustain that because they can see how important that is. And so I think that's one of the great struggles in our schools is that for a lot of our students, depending on where they're at and the community they're in, some of those resources aren't readily available, whether because it's rural area, high poverty, what have you, don't access to language at home, and just knowing how to navigate systems. And so, that's coaches are critical in being able to ID that. And we've actually are just launching. That's why I love this topic when I saw the questions come in. Stan Herring, Dr. Stan Herring, who, University of Washington, was the Seahawk doctor for a long time. He was the godfather of the concussion rule, right? He's the one who came to the association and said, let's do something. He helped draft that. And has continued that work with the Bowie rule, a young man who we lost out of Highline School District. Mm-hmm. So the Lysted Law, the Bowie rule. So that was Dr. Herring out in front of that, working in partnership with the WIAA. He's approached us recently on a mental health education program. And so we have just agreed to work with UW on helping, we can network so we can get coaches and players and, students who are interested to work with them to help design a program addressing a lot of the things you have that maybe we can institutionalize a system to better train coaches on this topic, to have some systems in place to where it can be referred. And then the rest of the community needs to help us with providing those services to all students and not just those of means that have ready access. So we're actually, it's going to be really exciting. Justin Kesterson from our office does a phenomenal job with our sports medicine advisory committee and working with all the medical professionals that join us. And it's going to be really exciting to watch them roll that work out over the next couple of years.
Mick, when I was coaching, and I'm not sure how this goes now, but when I was coaching, and you mentioned Stan Herring, we went through concussion training. And he did that and really learned. And boy, I tell you, in that period, I want to say between 2008 to 2012, when I was at Highline, I think I had about 10 different classes in concussion training. The NFL actually paid for that, and we and the Seahawks and we were able to either at Seahawks headquarters, Mount Rainier High School, I remember very vividly getting into the whole discussion and that Dr. Herring was trying to raise awareness to about when a person, there's no more getting dinged anymore. When you guys remember when which speaks to a lot about us, because we got dinged and then they would we get us a glass of water and shake us off a little bit and then Juan, get back out there and go get dinged on the other side. Maybe that'll balance things up, but you don't get dinged anymore. I mean, they take all of that very, very seriously. And I remember that. And obviously for years, whether it is cardiopulmonary or CPR instruction, your first aid instruction, we had conversations and classes on those, and you got those Red Cross certifications to make sure that we were certified, and our entire coaching staff had to be. When you talk about the mental aspects of sports, have we looked at coming up with maybe a certification or a 2-year coaching type of opportunity, similar to what we do with the cardiac arrest and with the CPR, looking at mental health issues?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping evolves out of this work with UW and Dr. Herring. That's our goal with partnering with it, and I know that is what their goal is initially. So, currently we're not mental health specialists, right? I mean, we're school teachers. We run tournaments, and so we have to find the right people. And luckily, there's the Dr. Herrings and in this world, Dr. Dresners, that are willing to step up. And so that is the goal. In the interim, what we're spending our time on is, we've talked about this, I think, previously with Joe Ehrman and Jody Redmond on Inside Out coaching. Neptune Navigate with Bruce Brown and Rob Miller with proactive coaching. of providing some services and training for how you coach, right? So trying to help coaches not exasperate current situations, but as far as identifying, I mean, you look at what happened, you talk about the NFL, look what happened with Aaron Hernandez. I mean, what a sad story. There's red lights and sirens going off there. And it never really got addressed. And it kind of reminds me of some of those early, the old movie Will Smith did around concussion, titled Concussion, was, there's these obvious things going on, and it took, great effort to create a system and then systemize it. And 15 years later, that's just part of normal everyday work anymore for coaches, officials, and families and all that based on that work. That's what we're trying to do with mental health right now, hoping that it comes forward with Stan. In the interim, we're not just sitting back waiting, because trust me, we got a lot of people who want to come in and provide those services.
Right.
We're not really in a position to vet like what's the quality of that, but also there's dollars attached to them that they want to get to families and kids. So we're trying to come up with something like the concussion that can be universal, accessible to all, and highly impactful. And so when you're dealing with kids in general and mental health or physical health, we got to get it right. So we're working at it right now.
I will tell you this: there was a injury in the game, and I kind of referenced that earlier. There was an injury in the game, and the kid unfortunately was laying on the ground in a prone position, and all the concern that usually comes with that sort of thing, and a ambulance had to be called in. And I will say this, Mick, I tell you, we O'Day and the different schools, we have Dr. King there on the sidelines. He came out, and the parents came out. The young man's brother came out. I wouldn't introduce myself to the young man's brother, who's an 8th grader, and he tells me he's a heck of a football player and baseball player. We have a conversation as his brother's in this really uncomfortable, and for the mom had to be just a really stressful thing. But I tell you, everybody involved, from Snohomish, from O'Day, to the stadium that we were at over in Nino Cantu Athletic Complex at Southwest Stadium, the Seattle Metro League staff, everyone was calm. Everyone was just so attentive to the young person. Everyone was so attentive to the parent. And of course, the kid fortunately walked out of the hospital later on that evening, and is doing fine up in Snohomish. But the bottom line issue is that with all of the people that were there in a situation that can be so uncomfortable and scary, and I know we're talking about mental health, but this goes along with it in participation in sports, I think everyone was relieved when that young man, was able to get out, and the way that they were able to get him out of the stadium. It looked like everything was rehearsed. And it makes for such a great story when it works like that.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And, knowing those schools and individuals involved, not a surprise, but it also goes back to your question, like, what can we do? What have we done? What can we do? And what are we doing? And physical health and safety is one that, like I said, last 15 years, just from like schools are required now by law to have emergency action plan. And Justin and that group with SMAC, we actually, coming out of schools, we were familiar with those. And so, first thing we did is we built a template for schools. So if schools were starting from scratch, you had a new AD, or it wasn't something that had been done, like they had best practice. And the National AD Association, NIAAA, is really, really good with this type of training. So we partnered with a bunch of people. We have templates readily available for people. And then you continue to evolve. It's not like you just check the box, because again, you're talking about people's physical and mental health and safety. And so, it's evolved now to where DeMar Hamlin brought attention to this, but we're already working on like these pre-game timeouts. And so they call them a medical timeout in the NFL. What we're doing with ours is we're asking every school, and so we have it's not mandatory yet, right? Trying to make sure it works, but before every contest, no matter freshman volleyball or varsity football game, the officials, the coaches, and the game managers out there, they always meet. So let's do a couple things. Number one, introduce ourselves so everybody knows who's who. And then number two, what's the emergency action plan? If there is an emergency and we need to bring in a aid car of some kind, fire department, okay, what's the plan? What do I need to know? So both sides, right? Both schools know. They're going to know where it's coming from, what's going on, so they're assured. And then if there's some type of other emergency, right? A ruckus in the stands. I mean, unfortunately, we have violence that pops off at some of this stuff. And so what's the plan for that? Where's the shelter in place? Where would we expect? So that way, the people in charge of both those schools, that's why we ask the game managers to be there. Then we start talking through, if we have a situation of unsportsmanlike behavior, whether it's coming out stands or on the fields, we're going to come to the people in charge to put a stop to it, right? We're counting on the leadership in that meeting, whether it's coaches with their kids, whether it's building administrators with their fans. So again, creating systems, right? I'm really big about, you identify a challenge, you got to build a system, then you have to be able to sustain it, right? Because if you come off with a one-hit wonder and it goes away, people start counting on it, it's gone. I think that's terrible. And then the next thing is scaling it out. And that's what I love about working with Dr. Herring and University of Washington, is that, you know, they buy into that we're going to go slower to go faster, just like this physical safety is. I could foresee us 5-10 years. I'm really excited to see what we have in place around emotional and mental health safety for our participants as well.
And you talk about, in fact, in terms of building systems, what happens is that those systems get rehearsed and they're repeatable. And on Friday night, it was obvious that people knew exactly what their roles were, from opening up the gate for the fire truck, for just everything just was in concert. And when you have the systems and you can rehearse those a little bit and people are through them, they work flawlessly.
Yep. No, exactly. And that's what we want to be able to do with mental health. Physical safety is much easier because we all kind of get it, right? We experience that our whole life. The mental health safety it's more fickle, it's more unknown, and so that's why we have to reach deeper out into our partnerships to help us build it. Luckily, we have the right partner, so we are very, very fortunate to have the people we have. So,
well, he is Mick Hoffman. He is very fortunate that he has the people he has. We are very, very fortunate that we have him visiting us on Tuesdays here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. It is time for a profit center attention. We have a little break coming up, and we will be back in 3 minutes to talk more about mental health in our public sports, our public school sports, or actually our high school sports, on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Hey Seattle, here are some storage tips to love food, stop waste. Onions make potatoes sprout faster. Keep onions away from potatoes. Ripe bananas give off a gas that makes the fruit around them ripen faster. Store bananas away from other fruits. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Le Viet Tây Bắc, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
What's up, everyone? It's your girl, Queen Bree, inviting you to come join me on Clean Greens Living. Broadcasted Tuesdays, 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, live right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. On Clean Greens Living, we talk farming, community, and ways to being healthy. So come join me and let's discuss ways to create a healthier you and a healthier community.
Get ready. TNT Supermarket, your Asian food destination, is opening Thursday, November 13th at the Linwood Crossroads Shopping Center. Doors open at 9 a.m. Arrive early. The first 300 customers will receive a free $10 TNT gift card, plus more exciting opening offers. From now until November 12th, TNT U.S. members can enter via the TNT app for a chance to win 2 round-trip tickets to Asia with China Airlines. Visit the TNT U.S. website for details. TNT Supermarket opens November 13th, 9 a.m. at the Linwood Crossroads Shopping Center. See you there.
You are listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Community radio station for so many different things. I didn't realize the impact of Rainier Avenue Radio. Using this last week, Mick, as you know, we have done some politicking on Rainier Avenue Radio. As a matter of fact, we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen in the mayor's race here in the city of Seattle, and that has been one of the most watched contests in the history of this city. And as soon as I get done tonight, I'm going to polish off my head. I'm going to put on a hat and ride down to your community radio station. I will go down to the studio, meet Daniel Bellis, and we're going to do an election recap show we did last week. We're going to sit down and we are going to talk about the returns, and I guess we should have some returns from the city of Seattle today. Katie Wilson has taken the lead, barely 91 votes. So if you have any doubt that your vote matters, it does matter, and they are going to be counting, and they're going to be recounting this, and I'm sure there'll probably be some challenges and some court issues in regards to this and people's signatures and that whole process. There are systems involved in voting, and we're learning more about those, and I'm sure over the next couple of weeks we're going to hear more about those, as that race is going to be coming down to the wire. We did have some elections that were not as close as people know, so we'll discuss some of those. And then I just wanted to give my thanks to Daniel Bellis for all the work that he does producing all of this stuff. And now is the time of the season where the National High School Federation, their NFHS broadcasts take over. But I know that Daniel and John Yasutaki and that group, and I tell you, there is nothing, Mick, there is nothing more difficult than broadcasting a high school game that your son is playing in. And, I remember when Clemente was playing in a playoff game a couple of years ago today, and you're just you're hyperventilating and you're trying to make sure, and people are like, how can you talk about all this stuff? And I'm like, hey, it's impossible to talk when your kids play, and you're just hoping that you're out there with them a little bit. But I just want to say thank you to Daniel, to John Yasutaki, and all the group at Rainier Avenue Radio who did games this year. Clemente is a senior now, so I will be able to get back to my regular rotation and actually do some football games next year. And I'm looking forward to that as we bring some of the schools that may not get some of the notoriety and visibility into their football programs. And from what we understand from from people in the South End Seattle area. It does mean a lot when we get those games on and people are able to see their kids and send those links across the country and hear about the activity and at least watch the activity on your community radio station. And it's always fun to do it. And Daniel, I know how much work it takes for you to set all that up. So we appreciate you, my man. Thank you. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. The culture of pressure. And we're seeing it on a variety of different levels, what our young students are going through between social media, college recruitment, NIL deals. Our high school students live under a microscope. And how do we help them manage that identity beyond their sport?
Yeah, I think this is where coaches can play a really significant role in helping their kids understand. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to make money off of potential NIL deals and what have you with what's happening at the college space. I mean, I think Oregon State has a quarterback that's on $1 million plus NIL deal and he's the backup right now. So the money's real in the college level. I mean, look, Texas Tech pumps out $31 million. All of a sudden, they're a top 10 team. So people are willing to pay to try to buy a winner, which means talented students are going to be in high demand. And if they can make that money as an 18-year-old in high school, and in our state, they can make it as a 16-year-old in high school, there's going to be people coming at them, hopefully with good intent. But that's one where coaches can definitely, as they're seeing that or hearing that with their students, support the families and the athletic directors in the schools. So,
is that starting to happen? Could that be something that could happen? How would that be viewed by the WIAA, for example? If a coach or someone approaches a young person and say, we can get you in better position to be viewed by NIL, viewed for NIL here. Is that a part of would that be a part of a recruiting standard or are we hearing anything like that?
Yeah, no, we get contacted on a fairly regular basis by individuals or companies that want access to students to be able to represent them. Typically it's under the guise of educating them on NIL, which seems wholesome and there, but they also, represent individuals, and that's not our role here. Our role is to bring people in. I mean, specifically our handbook talks about special interest groups, protecting students and schools from special interest groups. So it's one where our rules allow it. Families can pursue it. It's just that we really schools need to be involved, communicating with their families on the possible implications. Seattle Times ran a story about a young man the other day. Seems like a great kid. Got a small NIL deal. Good for him. And they get to learn about taxes and all those kinds of things. It's great. I mean, that should be part of the education process. But if people are helping individual students with that and then claiming a portion of bigger money down the road, it could be deemed almost predatory. And that's what we don't want to have happen to young people when they're sorting this through with their families. So.
It's such an interesting time right now in collegiate sports. And Mick, I just saw that the interim coach at Oregon State was fired because they lost to Sam Houston State. I'm like, wait a minute. You're firing the interim coach. You fired the regular coach and the regulars. Now you're firing the interim coach because he lost a game. And this is a segue into my next question, because I thought that was just so bizarre. When I was coaching and we were playing games, I was thinking about the Snohomish kids the other night. They in the seeding, or however it was, they're number 32. O'Day's number 1. If you're into all that at the high school level, and a lot of people are, but I admire the kids, and I certainly have been on that side where we're going on and we're facing school, and it's going to be a very, very difficult night. And I was thinking about that when I was on the sideline I was running the box. There should have been more attentive to the game, but I was thinking about the fact that, and I love listening to the coaches in terms of the simple things that they were trying to do. Let's get a first down here. Let's complete 4 passes. I remember those days when I would sit back and you're trying to come up with ways to motivate your kids when you know you're probably not going to win the game, but you want to make them as competitive and you want to find different things that they can take out of it. It's so important. How can the WIAA and school districts create healthier cultures where losing isn't equated with failure?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just comes out with a lot of times when we're out talking. I get invited out to a lot of sportsmanship summits and things like that to speak. So does the rest of our staff. And it's messaging we try to consistently put out there. Just like you're saying, the game within the game. The scoreboard's one thing, and we all want to win. We keep score, and we have standings, and we hand out trophies. Like, there's competition, but if there's 70 teams in your classification, and look at the scores from this last Friday and Saturday. Okay, so the districts have found a way to double up the tournament to 32 teams in football. How many of those were running clock games? So is schools have to decide. This is their call on that. Traveling across the state to get running clocked and spending, thousands of dollars on travel. Is that worth the experience for those kids? Well, during the week, they're pretty excited because they made it, right? They're celebrating. So there's that goal, that box was checked. Same time, if it ends up in that. And I think that's the push and pull of sports is great. You made it. Like, maybe that's the goal and whatever the score is. So when you're playing on that Friday night, our goal is this: no running clock until midway through the fourth quarter. That's goal number 1, right? Goal number 2 is we're going to get 2 first downs in every quarter. Goal number 3, no plays. We're not going to give up any plays over 20 yards. We're not going to take any unsportsmanlike penalties. Like, the things your team has worked on that then allows you to keep building year over year. And, the good coaches, that's what they do. And that's where we see some programs build over years and we see some blow up. And some try to take a shortcut, just bring in a bunch of kids, see if it works. If it doesn't, everybody's gone. So, we see all different ones, but those consistent building blocks are the ones that sustain. And whether it's winning on the scoreboard or winning in the locker room, they come out winners. And those kids and those families recognize that no matter what the final score of their last game is.
You bring up something so interesting. When I was on that sideline, and I'm not sure. I'm never sure what the parents are saying, and I try to sit sometimes away from the parents. But it was so refreshing to be back and listening to the kids. Those Snohomish kids were so fired up. Man, that was their one shot at destiny, and every play, and they never gave up, if you were there in that first quarter, you could definitely tell how much effort and how much preparation their coaches put in, because they really played O'Day straight up in that first quarter. And I was just really impressed, and I sent that to Coach Kohler, that they had an opponent that wasn't sitting there, and they weren't talking about all these other issues. They were working very hard to win the game, and I just thought that was really refreshing to see for those guys. So, man, my hat's off to them. Let me ask you this question. Are we seeing increased dropout rates in sports due to pressure or burnout? Is there a way that we're looking at that? And if you heard anything?
Not necessarily at the high school level. I mean, if you research this, they say about 70% of kids quit by the age of 13, right? And they talk about because we've professionalized youth sports.
Right.
So 70% of kids by age 13, where it used to be most kids would at least give it a shot in high school.
Right.
So because they play so much. Number 2 is burnout, injuries, whatever. Or it's just become so serious, it's not fun anymore. Or they figured out, you know what? I'm not going to go be the fourth. To that kid, it's not worth being the fourth running back on the team. Right. What they want out of sports, they're not going to get. So they go find someone else to do what they're done. But we're also seeing sports like girls wrestling, flag football explode in numbers at the high school level. So I think that's the other piece coming out of COVID is kids are more particular. They want what they want. And if they're not getting what they want, they're going to go find it somewhere else. So
I think there was one of those groups that has been working on Positive Coaching Alliance, I think it was. And they had this commercial, and I just thought it was so funny. This 12 years old, this 9-year-old girl, she was 9 years old. She was on the pedestal, and she was taking the award for the soccer team. And she said, "This is so fantastic, but I'm going to announce my retirement today." And she gave this speech about how incredible it's been for the last 4 years and all the games that we've played, all the hundreds of games that we've played to get at this point. But at the age of 9, I'm going to step down from soccer and go do something else. And it was just her the way it was done in her speech was just exactly what I think so many young people are going through at the youth level. And she's right. I mean, they're playing so many games, and the whole with the expectation that this is going to lead to Division I or now the WNBA or the Women's Soccer League. And her speech was so eloquent and passionate about what are we doing?
Yeah, exactly. And so much of that youth stuff now leads to a national championship game or a state championship game. And how many state championship games are there in soccer now? Or fast pitch, or baseball? There's like so many youth state championships, or Pop Warner football going down and playing in California. And, something get beat 87-0. Great experience. In that a kid who goes through that, why, that there's going to be just at that point be like, wait a minute. Like, one, what else are you going to do? I've already traveled as a 9-year-old to California to play football. And number two, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it was. And, when you talk about coach training, there's really no requirements at that before you get into our system. And so there's a lot of groups, Seattle actually has some pretty adamant groups, and there's some legislation that we've been made aware of going forward to try to start putting guidelines and protections in for kids and families at the youth level that will hopefully get some traction, just to get coaches some basic training. Again, not barriers to parents coaching, but just some regulation of it for the benefit of the health and safety of kids.
The health and safety of kids leads to the conversation about the parents, and that also, the commercial I just referenced with the young woman and the Positive Coaching Alliance. It's ultimately the parents that are letting their kids play all this stuff, and they're changing all of their schedules, and they're changing all of their routines to make sure the kids that the kids are participating. And I'm just wondering. And I know this is a constant thing that you and I have always talked about, not only on the show, because we dealt with it from a sense of experience as coaches when we were coaching high school sports. How can parents be better equipped to recognize and support their kids when athletics becomes emotionally overwhelming?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we can start doing a better job of having tools to educate parents. Kind of schools that anybody can access, and that if we can get them set up at the middle school, high school level in our system and share them with community groups that, are taking the time, the volunteers that are organizing those. But I think it's an education process. They do it out of emotion and love for their kids, right? They're doing it for all the right reasons, for the most part, right? Most of them are. And a lot of it is people are taking advantage of that. And so, what it costs to play a youth sport compared to a high school sport is a lot different. And that's why we need to keep sports in schools for access for everybody. But at the same time, we can't allow the outside ones to end the experience for 70% of our kids before they're 13 years old.
What do you wish parents understood better about today's high school sports environment?
I think that they need to be realistic and say, hey, where they're playing at, for 95% of them, that is their Super Bowl. That's the biggest game they're ever going to play in. So rather than sacrificing that because you think you're going to go play on TV on Saturday or Sunday, to enjoy and make the best of where you're at. That's what parents got to realize and start embracing.
Remember the political commentator George Will, and I believe that he was talking about baseball and Ken Burns PBS series, and he said that it's an illusion. He goes, what you're watching, that's the thing about baseball. He goes, it looks like everybody can do it, but if you were to step out on the field, and I think the NFL is also an illusion, especially in the fall. I hear so many parents telling me that their kids are Division I athletes. I think a lot of them don't know that I coach high school football, and I sit in there, and this kid's going to do this, and this kid's going to do that. I have a couple of parents who are convinced. I believe they're convinced that their kids are going to play in the NFL. And Mick, the kids are barely taller than I am, and I'm sitting there listening to this, and then they're playing on the defensive line, and I was just looking at some of these dudes at even at the Division II level. I was on the sideline for a Division II game a couple of weeks ago. And then obviously Division I, and you and I both seen it. Those guys are just mammoth. I mean, it's just like the guys that are playing. They're like another level of human evolution, and it's like your kid is just a really good high school player, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the physical attributes somebody needs to succeed in any Division I, 2, or 3 or high school professional is not what most kids have. There's a reason. I mean, if you look at the number of professional athletes that come out of the state of Washington, and it's not because they're not getting exposure. It's not because they're not getting good coaching from the time they're 8 years old all the way up. It's not because, people don't want kids from Washington. It's a numbers game. And it's just the realist that tells you how few people actually make it to that level. And the ones that do are unicorns, and they've put an incredible amount of work. And I mean, the other thing, Juan, think about this. Think of how many incredible players have gone through, say, University of Washington and not made it in the NFL or the NBA. I mean, we can name handfuls of them, but there's thousands of them that were extremely talented and physically gifted that didn't make it. It's such a different level that most parents, they have no understanding until they actually go to one of those events and stand next to one of those people and go, oh my gosh, like shake one of their hands, like watch one of those women just move in any type of environment and how fluid they are. And I mean, I'm amazed at our Hall of Fame. We'll put somebody in, 50, 60 years old, and you're still like, wow, I can only imagine what they were able to do at 18 years old, 16 years old, looking at them still physically gifted at 50, 55, 60 years old. So, and then that's not even skill set or mental toughness. That's just, these genes. So yeah, I guess that's it. Parents, they're just looking for the next thing, talking about the next thing that they want so bad for their kids, and they miss out on what's right in front of them right now, which really needs to be their big time.
Is there any way that the booster clubs and community organizations can help destigmatize some of the mental health conversations among athletes?
Yeah, I think that's where sponsoring, this kind of those conversations at the school, whether it's for athletics or you're doing it for school wide. And I think the more we have, community conversations around it and open, people get to hear and see that, hey, this is normal. And especially if they can identify alumni or individuals who are willing to come tell their story that are respected in their communities. Those are the kind of things booster clubs can do with no money. Like, who are people that are listened to in your community that can come back that have had those struggles? Because we've all had them at one time or another. Who can articulate that in a way that people will listen and want to be listened to? So I think that's where our community groups can really help within their own communities.
He is Mick Hoffman, and he not only looks for support from communities, but also goes out and really stretches that office down there in Renton to make sure that they're supporting communities all throughout the state of Washington in his role as the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. And I am Juan Cotto, and I am just a host of a couple of shows here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio. World, and we are here every Tuesday, or I should say on Tuesdays. I think we're doing this every other week now. We are having a look at high school athletics in the state of Washington, high school activities in the state of Washington, and the impact that has on our students, and hopefully not only creating a good athletic experience, but a good academic experience which translates to creating great people throughout the state of Washington. We have about 3 more minutes here. I'm going to give you just a couple of questions. You can shout out some quick answers. Excuse me. Could the WIAA eventually include mental health education as a part of athletic eligibility or team curriculum?
Yeah, I could see as those tools are readily available that would become an expectation.
How could we design a statewide mental fitness initiative for Washington athletes, and what would that look like?
That's what I'm hoping you, Dub, and Stan, Dr. Stan, and Dr. Dresner can help us with that one. And I think part of it, just as a lay person in the mental health world, we teach physical skills all the time in athletics. Why can't we teach mental health skills and have a focus every week? And that's where we need people who know if it's impactful. It may feel good, right? To me, I could say, hey, you know what, this week we should talk about perseverance. And at the start of every practice or at the close of every practice, explain what that is, give examples, right? Talk to kids, our teams, our coaches, arm our coaches with that kind of information and toolkit. But we need people who know what they're doing to design that. We can execute getting it out and making it available. So again, that's why we're partnering with the groups that we've mentioned.
How can alumni and former athletes, and we have so many former athletes who left Washington as great all-time high school performers, and then they went to their colleges, and it didn't work out for them. Yeah. And a number of in particular have been high profile. How can they help in mentoring the next generation through some of these challenges?
It goes back to the alumni and the Booster Club conversation we just had. Is if they're comfortable telling their story, whatever part of it they are, to help the next generation not have those same ones. I mean, we all mess up, right? I mean, it's human nature, and if we learn from our mistakes and share it with others, right? Now we've made a mistake actually into an asset. And so athletes are used to failing publicly. If they're willing to share their personal stuff, their story, I think kids would love to hear that from people they respect, that they can relate to.
And Mick, when you look 5 to 10 years down the road, what is your vision for how the WIAA will treat mental health, and what do you hope all of this accomplishes?
Yeah, I think it'll be similar to what we're doing with physical health, where we've really almost overwhelmed our schools and families with tools and strategies that they can implement that they deem best in their own school and community. I mean, that's my goal, is that we talk about scaling it out. Right now, we know what the issue is. We're trying to find a sustainable model, and then scale that thing out. So 5 to 10 years, I hope that we have that model set, continually evolving, but also available to every single school in our state.
Mick Hoffman, we truly appreciate your time. We know that you have a lot of things in your schedule, and we appreciate this hour you give us every couple of weeks. And we also appreciate the information and the forthright candor that we've always had on WIAA Primetime. Thank you so much for your time, and I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate Juan and what Tony and Daniel do to help us get the word out about what we're doing, so people understand WI a little bit more. We're not all about just getting people in trouble. Our goal is to help people and create some positive lifetime memories. And so it's a great opportunity for me to, one, it pushes me to reflect on what we do. You do a great job asking some good questions. And it also gives us a chance to talk about the positives in this world. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Talking about the positives in this world is what we do at Rainier Avenue Radio, and we appreciate Mick Hoffman and his time. Daniel, thank you very much for leading through this process, and we will see you both in a couple of weeks on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.